Hi, I'm the founder of Blackbright News and the director of Blackbright Community Services, which is an organisation, it's an out-of-hours social enterprise that redresses situations to do with abuse of power, trust and exploitative practices. This video is part 2 of human trafficking. It's more about raising awareness of what you can do if you know somebody who's being trafficked, and what victims can do if any victims happen to be watching this video. Anyone can be a trafficker. It's usually pimps, gang members, but it could be family members who sell you off if they're desperate for money. There are many different ways in which traffickers recruit and control people. Sometimes it's through deprivation. They starve them. They just give them enough so that they can work. They tell them lies. They promise them high-paid jobs. They come from a country, where they're probably feeling poor, and they'll say to them, look, if I get you to England, all you've got to do is work. I can get you a good job, and and all you've got to do is pay for your keep. It doesn't work out that way. They come over and they realize what's happening. They want to get out, and they start making threats. They either threaten them, or they say they're going to threaten their family members because they know where they live. Some of them are forced, to have sex, put in a room, and they're gang raped and all kinds of wickedness. They're beaten, and then they're sent off for sex trafficking. You have mental and emotional manipulation, where they make you feel as though you owe them, and you don't know what to do. All you've got to do is, the only thing you know to do is to stay with them and please them. Some of them even make them take drugs, substance abuse. So they get a dependency on drugs, and because they have a dependency on drugs, they'll do anything. And so that is how they can get them to be trafficked. Stealing their ID is a big one. They come over here, they say, look, we'll put your ID in a safe place. Just give me your ID, your documents and your money, and we'll look after it for you. The next thing you know, they don't get it back. And without documents, they're even more vulnerable. They're in a strange country. They don't know the language. They're on people who know the language, who have betrayed them, and they are absolutely desperate. And then, of course, there's the promises that, don't worry, we'll give you somewhere to live, and those kind of things. And it must be absolutely daunting and overwhelming and traumatic for the traffickers. Victims of domestic violence, some of them, they even force them to shoplift, so then they've got a criminal record. And then there's another reason why they kind of stay in that situation and don't know how to get out. Victims of domestic violence are more susceptible to exploitation, as violence and abuse may be normal to them. They're making them easy targets for traffickers. Depending on what frame of mind you're in, your children are in, traffickers could be laying wait for you, waiting for an opportune moment. So anyone can be trafficked, and a trafficker can be anyone. All you've got to be is vulnerable, desperate, lonely, isolated, any one of those, and in need of something that they can give you. And they're very good at sussing out then what you need. Because these people have been watching, they even go to the homeless shelters and pick up people. That's how callous and calculating they are. Rescued victims, of course, will need counselling. I'm a qualified counsellor, but I wouldn't feel comfortable counselling somebody who was trafficked, because it needs a totally different set of skills. These people have gone through so much trauma. they'd probably need a psychodynamic counsellor or something like that. They'd also need medical services if they've been sexually abused, if they've been beaten. They're going to need to go to the hospital and have medical attention. They're going to need clean clothes. They're going to need food and drink to build up their resilience. There may be some intervention by social services, safeguarding adults or children depending on their ages. And they're going to need a job to enable them to be independent. Unfortunately, under the new legislation, if they're not documented, they may be deported, which is another reason why they're going to be even more vulnerable and to further abuse and exploitation. However, they do have a stay, which I'll talk about later. If you help the police, you can get a little stay in the country. But I'll come to that later on. The damage to the victim, of course, is lack of trust. They'll never trust anyone again, I don't think. The fear that they must feel, also not knowing if the trafficker is around, not knowing if he's going to get them, especially these are the ones that escape. Anger, violence, because they keep remembering what they've been through. They probably want to get back at the trafficker and they can't, so it's all contained. And trauma and post-traumatic stress, depending on the extent of pain and trauma and abuse they've been through. Victims of domestic abuse will know that they don't have to be locked in a room to be held prisoner. The abuser has psychologically controlled that person so that they won't even leave, even if the door is left open. Non-English speaking victims needing help will find it difficult to communicate, especially if their documents have been confiscated, which makes human trafficking a very difficult crime to tackle. I'm at a loss because I do understand, but I don't know how people could be so ruthless. The good thing is that trafficked victims do have rights, and I'm going to let them know their rights in part 3. So this is Blackbright News. I'm Myrna Loy, the founder of Blackbright News, which can be found at www.issuu.com/Blackbright News, and issue is spelled ISSUU. Okay, there's also a publication on human trafficking that you can read free of charge from that website.